the gift of death. To never more feel pain or fret or worry.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone is a 2022 movie about a boy named Craig who befriends a rich old man named Mr. Harrigan in his small town, and he develops a bond with him over the years. And after the old man's death, he realizes that the connection between them still exists through the old man's phone. Now, this movie is based on a Stephen King short story of the same name, and I love Stephen King stories. I'm a huge fan. I've read tons of them over the years. And although I didn't read this one specifically, one of the things I love about his stories is how much time he invests in the characters themselves. Now, yes, he tends to have like sort of interesting concepts and of course scary imagery, but there is so much focus that he has on the characters themselves. And I can only attribute my love for good character work in horror movies back to his stories and the influence that they had on me growing up. Characters definitely are king in his world. But, he has different sort of subcategories of stories that he's done throughout his career. And I would put this one into what I would call sort of the From the Buick 8 category. It's less of a traditional horror movie, more of a journal of sorts of this sort of strange set of events that happen to this particular character who's narrating as it goes. And it sort of like strange things happen, but it also feels like slightly detached from any real consequences of the main character. It's just sort of this odd set of events. I mean, these things happen, it's strange, but the main character is not in any real danger, and there's no like giant obstacles or objectives he needs to overcome. And it's just kind of something that they learn about and say like, oh, okay, that was weird. Now, this isn't like a terrible thing when it comes to short stories, but in a movie, I would want a bit more stakes than what is currently in this film. Now, I will say in tradition that the character work here is great. They take their time in their relationships and they set up things so that you really get to know everybody. I mean, the bully's a bit too heavy-handed for me, but otherwise it keeps with sort of the King tradition, making you feel like you know these people in this town. But ultimately, I mean, the movie never fully invested me into what was happening because of how on the rails it kind of felt. Now, for a good example of what I'm talking about, I would suggest maybe Dead Zone, where we're kind of following this character through this strange connection, and it's told from his perspective as he goes through these different events in his life. But with that character, they found a way to connect him specifically to the choices that he makes and the actions he takes, which thrusts him right into the heart of the story and making him feel like he was part of it, as opposed to in this one where it feels like he's kind of on the outside of it. Solid acting here by the boy who plays Craig, played by Jaden Martell, who you might remember as Bill in the movie It. And of course, Donald Sutherland, who plays the rich tycoon Mr. Harrigan, is fantastic. But at the end of the day, it was more of a horror movie just simply because it has like some horror movie elements than what I would consider sort of a traditional horror movie. So, I mean, I'd give this a B minus. But let me know what you think.